Arizona Cardinals, they're apologizing after stadium staff forced a fan to throw her pro-Trump hat in the trash. Susan Rosner, a season ticket holder and longtime fan of the team, was wearing a black MAGA hat to Sunday's game. No big deal, right? You wear a baseball hat. When she was suddenly stopped by security and denied entry, she was told it violated the stadium's policies on prohibited items, and then she was forced to throw it in the trash or risk missing out on the game. Say that 5 times fast. Here is more from Susan.
I am super freedom of speech. I could care less if someone had a Kamala hat or T-shirt on. I do feel like part of the problem is this security woman definitely had a bias with my hat. In retrospect, I wish I would have stood my ground a little bit, but I wasn't sure what the repercussions would be.
In response, the team said this. In an isolated incident at Sunday's game, a stadium security member misunderstood a policy on prohibited items. Like most venues, signage, posters, flags, or displays that are political in nature are not permitted. However, that did not apply in this instance. Moving forward, we will work to provide clarity to all stadium personnel in these situations. We have also reached out to the individual involved to communicate that their experience was not consistent with our policies and practices and to apologize for that. Whew. All right, joining me now to discuss Republican consultant and president of Marathon Public Affairs, Jeanette Hoffman, and Newsmax correspondent Christina Thompson. I think this is absolutely bonkers, Christina. First of all, she's wearing a baseball hat.
To a baseball game.
Well, it was a football game.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, but here's the thing. First Amendment rights clearly violated. There were no profanities on it. There was nothing. It was just a typical MAGA hat with a logo, and allegedly this woman actually was threatened. Supposedly, she said, listen, even if you don't do it, I'm going to kick you out, the security guard said, and you can't watch the game anyway. Yeah. So it got a little heated.
I mean, this is the same old song and dance, right? Didn't we see this with the guy wearing a Jesus Save shirt walking into a mall? Didn't we see this with the group of pro-life teenagers back in D.C.? And it always comes out at the end that it was the person who was in the right? They have the freedom of speech. I also wish that she would have stood her ground, but listen, let it be a lesson to all of you out there who might want to wear different things to games. Know your rights, know your laws before you go so that you have a leg to stand on.
Yeah, and also, though, that would be something that I wouldn't even think of wearing a hat. But the fact that we actually heard the woman say, I wish I would have stood my ground, but I was concerned about the consequences. I'm paraphrasing here. The fact that she should be concerned about the consequences for wearing a hat is absolutely crazy and shows me how extreme things have gotten in this country.
Right, but we've seen that there actually have been consequences. There was a Philadelphia Eagles football game. George Norcross, who's a party boss in New Jersey, he was thrown out for waving an Israeli flag. So, this does happen. And I think she just didn't want to get kicked out of the game. Her husband really wanted to see the game. And it was unfortunate. And, speaking of consequences, what were the consequences for that staff member who was
what I'd like to know.
Really in the wrong? And really, frankly, I think it was harassment what happened to this woman.
The woman probably didn't want to wind up like as a meme, as some quote-unquote Karen.
Right.
Like the nurse just trying to city bike home after her shift, right? Until we know the full story, the media just goes crazy with it. She was probably terrified of that. What if someone had their cell phone out?
Right.
Exactly.
Or the security cameras. You don't know what the consequences are. And
that's true.
Sometimes it's better just to be quiet and to comply. And I think that's a really sad state of affairs right now.
The sad thing is I think that more and more people think, well, I just need to stay quiet for fear of being canceled, for turning into a meme, for being ejected as a season ticket holder from something. And that's terrifying, I think, when our country, America, starts to be maybe not comfortable exercising our First Amendment rights, Christina.
I mean, that should be that's the whole basis of what America was built off of, right? The freedom of speech, the freedom of, it's just so ridiculous. I feel for her. I truly do feel for her. I can't imagine what it would have been like in that situation. But what I meant by that is let this be a lesson to everyone watching right now, right? Learn from her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But also, I will say, with the flag that you mentioned at the Eagles game, that is actually on the list of prohibited items. So he was in the wrong.
So I guess there are some rules.
Yes, know your rules and know your rights to quote The Clash, one of my favorite bands. But I digress. All right, Christina Thompson, Jeanette Hoffman, thank you so much.